So finally, Chelsea are getting that close, very, very close to Abrantia Efreno, Christopher Nkunku. Finally, oh, they are getting very, very close to Christopher Xabi Alonso, and also the sale of Christopher Nkunku because two deals CB are getting very closer. It looks as if Chelsea for can go in there and finalize the deal for Abrantia Efreno, Xabi Alonso for him to come in there to come and get a job done for them. Of course, Barca for are trying to finalize the stadium and the Spotify company in September. They are going to be back if they get the approval from the Barcelona city authorities. One, they can come back in September to come in and come and do their job. We'll talk about all of those things that were happening. Madrid, the boys not prepare for Nyamiad Mochina game on Osasuna or the Stadio Santiago de Bernabeu. We'll talk about all of that and of course other things about Chelsea Football Club and all the other details that were happening. Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. So I'm subscribing to the channel and I'm sure subscribe to the channel, turn the notification, in the notification turning, do choose all. So anytime their content ever drop over handle, we are first to have it here on Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube and BDR and kama because there are lots of things for us to unpack here for you in BDR and you're nicely for us to get into the conversation over there. See, let me start by saying this. We need to say a big thank you to Yesumo Spare Parts Dealership Shop. I kind of several times said when it comes to spare parts, there are only a few people. I mean, I think that I have not seen anybody that's close to the quality and quality of the response, quality of how Yesumo delivers, quality of how Yesumo is swift in terms of making sure say BBI come. Yesumo are the best in terms of spare parts dealership nobody gets close to him. So any car issue that you have, any car spare parts matter you get, or Ghana has inquiry. If you're in Accra, just drive to Abosokai at the post office. If you are not close to Abosokai, even if you're in Accra or away from Accra, please text me sure that you call Yesumo on 059-313-8221, Also, make sure so if you are not in Accra, he can do the nationwide delivery for you. Just call him and he'll take good care of you. Take care of you. What we want also is to say a big thank you to MOB Clothing, Charlie. If you want the best of shirts, the best of tops, the best of sweatshirts, open slippers, open joggers, open office shirts, anything that is clothing, apparel, the best place for you is MOB Clothing. Where they are also, they are at Tudu at our flower station. What you can do is that you can call them. Also, they do nationwide delivery, whether retail or wholesaling for you. Call them on 0200 668708. 0200 Call MOB now. Let them take good care of your clothing issues for you. So they be there. Of course, this weekend, Barca were able to play in the first game of the Spanish La Liga, maximum points. But Hansi Flick had said several times he was not happy with the application of the Barca players. Was not happy with how Barca, with that much advantage in the first half, scoring two. Mallorca for only getting 2 red cards, and then Barca only ending up to win the game by just 3-0. And of course, Russia again, you could tell the intensity had dropped. It had dropped largely, where Barcelona looked like they felt that they were good enough. A lot of reports in Catalonia, a lot of reports from Mundo Sport and the likes tells us that immediately Hansi Flick went to the dressing room when the game ended. He was furious. In fact, according to reports, he was hitting the tables and chairs and told his players, said, if this is how they are going to behave, then they cannot even win the La Liga again. He told them point blank, say, if this is how they are going to behave now, then they cannot even win the La Liga again. So they should change how they are doing their thing. They should make sure that at the end of the day, they play better, they do better, they put themselves in games and don't think say they are better than anybody and that they can just play anyhow on the day. In fact, the football in itself, I don't think it was bad. It's just that in the context of the game where Mallorca had 2 red cards and then they were down, all of them happening in the first half. Totally, you are dominating the game. Barca looked a little bit lackadaisical, and he went on to say players, said Marcus Rashford and the likes, probably will not enjoy the game because when they came on, the intensity of the game had dropped. And Mallorca were defending the box with a lot of players, so it was always going to be difficult for Marcus Rashford more to get space and time to try and manipulate and influence the game. And that's exactly what had gone on with Abrantia Efreno. Hansi Flick. So they returned to training. The players came in. One of the things Hansi Flick also is not excited about is Abranti, a friend Wojciech Szczesny. As it stands now, Barca have not registered Wojciech Szczesny. In fact, the Barca board has given him, they have given him the confirmation and the assurance that in just a week they are going to be able to register Wojciech Szczesny. We know they registered Marcus Rashford and then registered Juan Garcia for the game against Mallorca. But again, a bunch of friends would just share it's not part of it. Again, it was one of the things that Hansi Flick was excited about. Why is it that you gave the player contract extension up till now and still he has not been registered? He was making sure, say, he urges the Barca board to make sure, say, they go on and register Brantia, your friend Wojciech Szczesny. So they're expecting to get a job done. They're expecting to register Wojciech Szczesny, just so Wojciech can come in and be important for the team. Because if you remember in that game against Mallorca, Juan Garcia did hurt his one of his fingers, and he had to be massaged. He had to be. I mean, they make sure that he stayed in the game because there is no Ter Stegen. In that campaign, it's not on the level where they want him to play. And of course, Roger Szczesny was not on the bench. So obviously, Barca had to do that. The good news, however, from football club Barcelona is the little thing about the Spotify Camp Nou. I said it earlier on. So it's some good news for them. Barcelona are getting closer and closer and closer to returning to the Spotify Camp Nou. It's the soul of the club. They definitely want to play some very, very good football at the Spotify Camp Nou. Hence, Barca have been pushing. They have been trying as hard as possible to make sure say they can go back to the Spotify Camp Nou and go and play some good football over there. And that's exactly what they are waiting to do. What we heard is that they are getting close to it. About 27,000 people can return to the Spotify Camp Nou if they get the clearance from the city center, like I mentioned earlier. And Barcelona are excited about the only little thing. And is the main home dressing room no, doesn't look like it's going to be ready inside game no, when Barca want to return to the Spotify Camp Nou. So what will happen is that Barcelona would have to wait. They would have to wait and then use some of the guest changing rooms now. The once that changing room is done, the main changing room is done, then they can go back to the main changing room and go and do their job and change and get a job done. What the Spotify Camp Nou. Barcelona are on a good run. Of course, Real Madrid are playing against Osasuna. Barca got a 3 points. So what it means is that Madrid has to find a way and also get the 3 maximum points because Madrid don't want to start the league season by by leading the chasing pack with Barcelona. It is always going to be difficult, very, very difficult. If you start a season as a chasing pack or you want to make sure so you go into the season winning. And that's exactly what I'm certain say Xavi Alonso and then Martin and Becca. And then Xavi Alonso in his pre-match press conference, he was asked about a lot of things. In fact, a whole lot of things. He was asked about Franco Mastantuano. He was asked about Mastantuano saying that Messi is the best player in the world. He was asked a lot about things. In fact, even with this Messi Mastantuano conversation, they asked him, said, what does he make of it, of Mastantuano saying, he can tell the player which player he should mention as the best player in the world. He is Argentine for crying out loud. Also, he's a left-footed player, saying that with a smirk. And I think that's a good answer for you. He was asked about his system going to play against Osasuna. I think that almost everybody is excited to see what Madrid are going to look like in that game against Osasuna. Everybody's excited to see how Madrid is going to play like in that game against Osasuna. Everybody's excited to see how Madrid will go into that game, how they will manage the game on the ball, off the ball, because we've spoken about it several times. Jude Bellingham had returned to training, but on the personal level, Franco Mastantuano has trained. Of course, we know that Camavinga, Rudiger, and a couple of other players are not going to play in that game against Osasuna because of for Rudiger returning from injury and also some red cards that he took at the tail end of the season. So what it means that Madrid are actually excited. Set now they can have a brand friend Eder Militao back into their team. Yeah, they are very, very excited that they have Eder Militao because really Eder Militao gives them that difference in temperament from Dean Heights and also another calm head to an extent. He is not too erratic like like Antonio Rudiger. And also, he is also combative. He's physical. He can win duels. And also a leader at the back for them. So Madrid have a very good defensive combination now in Eder Militao and also adding Dean Heights into it. Of course, Alvaro Carreras is on the left-hand side. Now Trent Alexander-Arnold It's an important one for Madrid. They can decide to invest Trent Alexander-Arnold centrally to add to the ball playing ability of Aurelien Tchouameni, and of course form that box midfield with Federico Valverde and also other goalie that will now push up into the midfield, the attacking trail. But everybody knows this. The Madrid's problem isn't when what they do on the ball. Really, it's what Madrid do when they do not have the ball. It's what Madrid do when they have to win duels. It's what Madrid do when they have to press and counter press and be very aggressive in those lines. That is where it's a little bit of a big problem for Football Club Real Madrid. I'm thinking that it's Osasuna. It's the first game at the Santiago Bernabeu. Regardless of how difficult the match gets, Madrid has shown that they know how to grind results. And I mean, this is the season where Kylian Mbappe, Vinny Jr., Rodrigo Gosh, these guys will understand that Barca really cannot dominate them for 2 seasons in a row. Yes, it's not going to be an easy run in the park. It's not going to be straightforward for Madrid to get back into the conversation and win the La Liga as Barca did last season. But again, I think that Madrid is going to give them a good run for their money. But again, like I've always said, it depends exactly on what Madrid do without the ball. It depends on how they try to chase games, how they try to win duels, how they try to play forward, and of course, how Xabi Alonso himself can find that balance in the middle of the park and the balance in attack and even the balance in the defense as well, because it's very, very important for them. It's not going to be an easy one for Football Club Barcelona. But for me, I'm trusting that against Osasuna, Madrid has the quality and the firepower to get a job done from them. So we'll see tomorrow how exactly that game pans out. The good news from the camp of Chelsea is that you remember this morning I did report to you, said Bayern Forno, they came to the negotiation table for Christopher Nkunku. When they came to the table, Chelsea told them that they don't want to let Nkunku go on a loan. It's an outright sale or nothing. I had also explained to you that Bayern said that per their plan for the next few years, they don't believe that they will be able to dominate Europe. So they don't want to commit too much into player purchases. They want to make sure that they have just enough players to deal with winning the German Bundesliga at home. That is exactly what FC Bayern Munich said, and they are planned going into the season. So it has become something. Can Bayern going and getting Nkunku? In fact, they had sent Pini Zahavi, who is the agent of Christopher Nkunku, to go to Chelsea and tell Chelsea that they want the boy on loan and will be able to take him on loan. Chelsea had told them straight up that Christopher Nkunku is not a loan player, and there were two reasons for that. They told them that Nkunku has 4 more years on his contract. Two, Nkunku was the Bundesliga Player of the Year just 3 years ago. So he is not a player that you are unsure about in the German Bundesliga. He has played the German Bundesliga before. He is a young player. He is another player. When he was in the German Bundesliga, even with your players, he was the best player in the German Bundesliga. So why then do you want to come back and come and say that you want him follow? But the good news from Bild and Kicker and all the outlets in Germany is that when Chelsea stood up to FC Bayern Munich and also Pini Zahavi, according to Platigo and a lot of those reporters from Bild and Kicker, the update is that Bayern are back on the negotiation table, and what they are saying is that they are willing to go in for Christopher Nkunku for 45 million euros over there for him. So it's positive. It's good news for Chelsea because they are going to be able to sell Christopher Nkunku outright out of the club. Once they do that, it means that it opens the way for Xabi Alonso. What you are hearing is that Xavi Simons to Chelsea now is 85% done. Yeah, Xavi Simons to Chelsea is 85% done now. Why is it 85% down now? Why is it not, less than 85%? But how has it just jumped to 85%? Because that deal is hinged on Christopher Nkunku. That deal is essentially down to Christopher Nkunku moving away from the club. And I've explained several times, you need the freedom on the books. You need the FFP freedom in terms of amortization to bring in Xavi Simons. And I've said it several times. Xavi Simons is an important player because one of the things that we've seen in the last few games in the English Premier League is that teams that shut up shop, teams that are very compact without the ball, one of the things that they do is that they make sure that they take a certain Cole Palmer out of the game. So you need more creators without Cole Palmer. One other player that can be very important in those tight spaces is Xavi Simons. And I think that Chelsea really has to come in and get Xavi Simons. By its closing, Xavi Simons has shown, in fact, in the last few days, the report was that Xavi Simons had told almost every club in Europe that it is only Chelsea that he wants to play for. Yeah, he had told almost every club in Europe that it's only Chelsea that he wants to play for. So it's clear and it's opening the pathway for Chelsea to go on and get Xavi Simons. I mentioned the last time that Xavi Simons will cost between somewhere around 45 million to 50 million from RB Leipzig. Of course, there are going to be some add-ons between 5 to 10. It's deemed as a deal that's going to finance stuff. In fact, this afternoon, there are reports from Times and the Telegraph that say that Chelsea are expecting that by the time the transfer window is done, they are going to do sales of somewhere around 300 million euros. And in that, they are going to achieve a net zero sales. And I mentioned it several times over here that that is the goal of the sporting directors. If the likes of Stewart, Wayne Stanley, Shields, and Chris Jurasel, all of these guys speak, you realize that essentially they want to get into net zero. Net zero in the sense that they want to make sure that the expenditure and then the sales are almost equal. And then it looks as if, okay, we've not spent anything. We've sold the players out because there are a lot of assets in the Chelsea team that they have to let go. One of them is Christopher Nkunku. In fact, the only player that I hear that they are going to consider sales for is Abrantia friend Raheem Sterling. Also, there is a conversation around Kani Chukwuemeka, who Dortmund had come to have the negotiations on. Chelsea told them that 15 million that they want to buy Kani Chukwuemeka for, they won't take. So if you realize the latest Premier League name mentioning media day, Kani Chukwuemeka was there. Nicholas Jackson was there. All of these guys have been there just to make sure that, Charlie, if you are not willing to get them, they will keep them there. The only player who they are willing to let go in terms of a loan is Raheem Sterling. Also, Benjamin Chilwell, also a lot of clubs have come and they're asking questions about Benjamin Chilwell. They want to take him away. In fact, just this evening, two Premier League clubs, including Fulham, have asked questions about Benjamin Chilwell. They want to take the boy away. Chelsea are very, very confident that they can do deals for Benjamin Chilwell. They can do deals for Nkunku. And then also the big one is Nicholas Jackson. A lot of teams in the English Premier League, a lot of teams outside the Premier League. AC Milan have lost Tammy Abraham, and they're asking questions about Raheem Sterling, Nicholas Jackson, and then also teams in the English Premier League like Newcastle United. Yohan Wissa said that he wants to move on from Brentford. I mean, he is very, very clear in his mind that he wants to go to Newcastle United, and we're expecting that immediately Newcastle United are done with Yohan Wissa. One of the players they'll focus on is Nicholas Jackson in the Prem. Once Nicholas Jackson comes into the Prem, comes to Newcastle, it opens the way for Christopher Nkunku to go away. And then Christopher Nkunku will also go and it opens the way for Xavi Simons to go to Chelsea for him to go and get a job done. So we are going to see exactly how Chelsea are going to manage that situation, or the players that are going, the players that are coming in, and stuff like that. So we're going to see exactly how things are going to go on for them. Chelsea's next game is on Friday. In fact, one of the things is that after Xavi Simons, it means that Alejandro Garnacho will also have to come in at Chelsea Football Club, and he's one player that Chelsea is also interested in. In fact, I said it yesterday, for some of us who really have not been too enthused about Alejandro Garnacho, yesterday's game was some level of a wake-up call for us, because if you look at games where yesterday Chelsea were chasing it, and then you have Liam Delap in the box, you want to put crosses in there for Liam Delap to get on the end of it. And if you want Estevao on the game, and then you have to take off Jimmy Gittins, it means you have to take Pedro Neto to the left-hand side. Now, Pedro Neto is not functional on the left-hand side. Pedro Neto, he is not functional on the left-hand side. The ball essentially is always under his feet. His head is down. He doesn't put in the crosses early enough. I think that you need to be able to get Alejandro Garnacho on that left-hand side for him to put in the crosses for Liam Delap to attack them when in times like that where Chelsea are chasing the game and they want to put in a lot of crosses. And that's very, very important, because when you have Liam Delap is in the game for stuff like that. I mean, boots, center forward, attacking jobs, and then as a center forward, the holder player he can bring to play. It's very, very important for you to get that from Liam Delap. So we'll see exactly how Liam Delap goes on, and that set piece play from Alejandro Garnacho and Estevao Willian. And today on Estevao's Instagram, he went there and says he wants to first of all say thank you God, and also for his Stamford Bridge debut in the English Premier League. And I hope that Estevao can go on consistently, slowly, and then pick up. Estevao is not on the level of Lamine Yamal. He is not, close to it. I mean, that acclimate that slope from the Brazilian leagues, the English Premier League, it's not that straightforward. I mean, there are going to be a few downs, but definitely if he keeps his head high, the potential is there for him to be a world beater. I mean, he can be a world beater if he wants to be a world beater and if he keeps his head down. Definitely, he can get a job. Of course, Cole Palmer, in an interview, has been speaking about Liam Delap. Cole Palmer say Liam Delap is one of the best finishers that he has seen in his job, and that Liam Delap is such a clean finisher. So he's expecting that Liam Delap will do well. We spoke about the fact that Chelsea have grown, things at the club is going in the right direction. They expect that they'll compete for better trophies in the Premier League this season. And I think that is the expectation from a lot of the Chelsea fans, that Chelsea will compete for very, very good trophies this season in the English Premier League. They expect that Chelsea's performance have been good post the Conference League and the Club World Cup. It's about consistency. What has happened has happened. It's about how Chelsea can focus and go on well. I like the fact that Enzo Maresca gave them a break and then asked them to come back against preseason for them to focus on the game against West Ham on Friday. And that's going to be a huge game, and hopefully Chelsea can pick up their first win. If they do, it puts them in a very, very strong position going forward, because second game, other teams may drop points, and if you're able to pick up your 3 maximum points away from home, then you have to move on from there and see, okay, what's the third game going to look like, how it's going to, because I think there are 3 or 4 London derbies before Manchester United, so it's not going to be an easy one at all for Chelsea Football Club in the games that they had to play over there in the London derby against West Ham United. Of course, Cole Palmer also spoke about Abantia defending João Pedro. Or say the combination between he and João Pedro is nice. He said they even have it in training. Constantly, they are finding each other. The relationship, and it's nice for them to find each other on the left, on the right, centrally, playing forward, going back, all of those things. No, he says that he loves it. He loves his power as a player, and he knows that João Pedro is also a super guy as what they're going to do. So things seem to be good. Crystal Palace, they shut up shop, made it very difficult for Chelsea, but it looks as if the players are calm. If you look at Enzo Fernandez, if you look at Cole Palmer, everybody is saying that, Charlie, it's a marathon. It's a marathon. It's a marathon. We got our first point on the board. The first game, we need to be patient. We're expecting that Tosin Adarabioyo is going to return in that game against West Ham United. Excuse me. You're expecting that Tosin Adarabioyo is going to be back in that game against West Ham United, because he's an important defender. What it means that can push Joshua Kofi Echampon to RCB, and then of course Chelsea can now evaluate the other centre backs in there over there for themselves. So we'll see how things are going to pan out from there. This is Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. I'll see you, God willing, tomorrow. Bye bye.